Good evening, bonsoir, bienvenue à la réunion spéciale le 19 novembre. Welcome to the special public meeting on November 19th. Ms. Parker, do we have, oh, no, we're going to go to the adoption of the agenda first.
That the agenda be approved as presented.
I'll need someone to move in second. Councillor Branch, seconded by Councillor Legacy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Motion carried. Now, Ms. Parker, do we have any declaration of conflict of interest?
No conflicts of interest were declared.
Okay, so we fall under finance, general capital fund budget review. Madame Gauvin, je vais vous donner le micro. Et vous êtes prêts.
It's so short, I think I have to pull it down.
Ouais. Budget part 2.
It's really short.
Part 3.
Hello again. We are continuing this week. Sorry.
That's fine. Well, sorry. Oh my gosh. Hold on.
Glad you came.
Yeah, I know. Oh. Okay.
Oh, it was
What happened there?
glad we had IT with us.
There we go. Bad. And
There we go. So we will continue tonight the budget discussion working session. So this is part 3. This is an additional session to what we had initially planned, and the goal today is to discuss different sections that were brought up for further discussion last week. And ultimately, we will be looking for direction from for staff on what to include in the next proposal draft budget, which we hopefully could bring next week if we have enough guidance to finalize a balanced proposal. So the agenda for today, just to guide everybody of what's coming, we figured that we would start by laying out the general capital fund, because some of the decisions from the general capital fund will impact the general operating fund. So we figured that we start the opposite way that we usually start off. So we'll look at that. Then I think we need to clarify a few things about the capital reinvestment strategy. So when we discuss the general capital fund, we'll look at that. We'll review again the project and the new asset that was brought up for listing. We will look at the financing and the cost of financing. So we'll try to integrate what we think we understood from council last time and what it would look like. So we'll see where that brings us. And then we have the operational general fund, where we will look at council budget. We just want to confirm that it's still a go for what we have planned. Then we will discuss the tourism accommodation levy, because it was brought up last time for further discussion. The grants budget, clarification on the library. And then finally, we had discussion at the end of the meeting for the tax rate for Ward 1, which is Old City Bathurst limits. So we'll bring some information for that as well. And at the end, just because we want to make sure that we leave with the correct interpretations, I'm just going to do a summary of everything that was decided to make sure that we understand everything correctly so that we can input it in the draft budget correctly as well. So the general capital fund. So the reason why we're showing this slide right now is because I think that there needs to be a bit of clarification on the capital reinvestment strategy. I think there's a bit of misconception of what we've been doing for the past few years. But in 2019, the city started the capital reinvestment strategy. So as shown on the left, this is simply borrowing less, creating savings in principals and interest payments, and reinvesting these savings in purchasing capital asset cash. So the more cash we use, the more savings we have, because old debts are coming to the end of their payment term. And so the more we can increase the cash purchases, and the more we increase the total capital budget. So another way to look at it is on the table to the right. So these are the lines that are on the operating side. So when we look at the fiscal services, when we get to the operating budget, so that's why both are linked. In 2021, we had an expense of close to $3 million in principal reimbursement and interest payments. With the shift we've been able to accomplish in the past 2 years, we've been decreasing those two lines and reinvesting the savings that they make in capital cash. The ultimate goal, if we continue on this path, is to have zero expense in our budget for principal and interest and have $3 million cash. This does not exclude that there's other options to in the future to look at that number. But that's simply what the capital reinvestment strategy is. It's simply a reallocation of those lines to have a better purchasing power. So I've heard that we have been too aggressive in our debt reimbursement. I just want to make clear that we are not paying more than the minimum requirement to our reimbursement obligations. We are sending, when we submit a debt for debenture, we receive a sheet of paper from the province outlaying what payments we need to pay them for every year. If it unbalances by 1 cent, they send the check back. So we are not investing more money to reimburse for debts to decrease the net debt. That's the result of what it comes at the end of the day, but we're just paying the bare minimum on the reimbursement of the debt annually. As you can see in the new budgets now, I think in 2025, principal is $1.6 million. Well, the savings that are between where we started from to now are now in cash purchases. So that's simply what the capital reinvestment strategy is. When we borrow money, we have to pay the interest and then it accumulates further down the road. There's also another advantage by doing this strategy, is that by paying cash for capital purchases that are for yearly needs like roads and equipment, we open the door to have the ability to borrow for major projects like fire hall, new pool, new public works building. So if we always have a high amount of principal and interest when we borrow for those major investments, which Mr. Abernathy presented yesterday, that will eat a whole chunk of our budget on top of that. So regular operational stuff, that's what we've been trying to pay cash. Leave the debt for major project. That's what we've been trying to do. So I don't know if this clarified, because I think there's been misconception about what we've been doing to reduce the debt. All we're doing is reallocating the savings from the debt to capital, and old debts are becoming to issuance with the end of their terms. We don't borrow again for that same amount of money. We're decreasing how much we're borrowing. That's how we're accomplishing by making that circle. So looking back now at the initial list, so you're gonna see I'm gonna present for reference what we presented last time. Then I'm gonna present a new format for discussion based on council comments that we've heard they might want to look at. So as you can see, this is the list. We've highlighted the 3 capital tourism projects that were equal to $140,000, and we think we understood from council that they would prefer borrowing for those amounts instead of using the tourism money and pay cash for them. So as you can see, this is what we had presented. We had $140,000 in cash, and we had $525,000 in borrowing. If we do this, then those 3 projects shift in the bottom, which would make the total borrowing to $665,000. And as you can see here, 0 for the tourism accommodation levy. And then we have the financing costs. So on the left, when we look at initial borrowing plan, if we go with the initial proposal of $525,000, obviously over 10 years, the principal shows up as $525,000. Every year we have interest on the remainder of the balance. So the total cost to purchase the value of $525,000 is $656,000. If we add $140,000 to borrow for the capital projects, to purchase the value of $140,000, we're going to reimburse $175,000. So I guess that for the capital fund, now it's kind of open for discussion, where council would like to go and what's the direction.
All right. So does council have any questions at this time? Now's the time to, okay. Councillor Anderson?
Thank you, Your Worship. So if we look at what is requested in the capital budget, like one thing that pops out at me is the,
Can you go back to that? Oh, there it is. I'm sorry.
I think that's
You're
the slide.
one step ahead of me.
the renovation, the first line. The purpose of this renovation is to house additional staff, new hires. Is that the purpose of it? Can somebody clarify that?
I would refer to.
Mr. Abernathy, okay. Got the mic, Mr. Abernathy?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, so essentially that space since CRA has left has been empty. It hasn't been used. Expanding needs at City Hall have required us to have to move staff over there. It's not any extra staff that are going there. It's existing staff that have already been on. But if you look at the staffing at City Hall, it's literally starting to look like sardines. Like every office, every storage space, every common space has been chopped up and turned into additional office space. So to me, it's a natural progression of any workplace that needs to move on to have extra space. We have that space available, so that's why the decision was made to go there.
So what is the urgency to put $500,000 up there if there's staff that's already there now? What's the urgency to put $500,000 into that building when we could reallocate that money elsewhere?
The staff that are there now are certainly not set up in an appropriate way. I mean, they're the way CRA was set up is they had managers' offices in all of the corners and they had cubicles all in the middle.
Yeah.
So right now we're not using the entire space. We're going to be using a smaller section of the lower end. They're set up in the high end right now temporarily so that we can renovate the lower end. But the way they're set up now, I mean, they're all dispersed all over the place. There's very little working flow going on at all. I mean, they're in offices all over the place. There's junk all over the place. It certainly does need a renovation. There's no.
How many people are working over there currently?
There's currently 7.
7. So it is because of staff we've hired, because we didn't have an issue with housing the employees here previously. So it's obviously as a result of additional hiring.
We have done several renovations at City Hall as well, though, right? Like we've invested money in separating offices, and that's been going on for years before any of these extra staff have come in, right?
Okay.
We added the bylaw officer, we've added many other staff too.
True.
So it's been an ongoing thing. If you were at City Hall 10, 15 years ago, there was a storage area where there was filing. There was Wayne Hashay's office where there was a large draftsman's area. There was the lunchroom, the IT room was a different setup. So things have evolved over the years, and everybody's really on top of each other. So we very much seen it as the natural progression.
I just have a hard time with that, because when I look at when you presented last week, I want to say you were showing a deficit of $270,000, correct?
Yes, but that one is without the increases for Ward 2, so that's going to be minimized, but generally, yes.
Generally, yes. So when I look at what's requested under the capital budget, and when I look at departmental operational budgets such as KCI and Public Works, I look at ways of trying to reallocate money to help those two departments in particular, no offense to any other departments, but those two departments in particular, because I know that both of these managers have kind of fallen on the sword and have asked for kind of a bare minimum requirement to get work done that they need to get done. However, I don't feel like we're looking at the bigger picture and we're pushing work to the side that we're going to get ourselves into trouble with later down the road. Do you know what I mean? So that's kind of my concern and where I'm coming from with it. So for me, when I look at if we're going to take $500,000 out of an operational budget, like that could help go towards, say, for example, Mr. Wilbur's budget to help with those that $140,000 that was initially put in the tourism levy. Do you know what I mean? So I'm trying to find a way to try to balance it out so that the departments get additional monies that they need, like sidewalks need repair, big time. Could Mr. Abernathy get additional monies to help with that type of project so that we're not sinking it all into something like using all the cash that we have to sink it into certain projects when it could be dispersed to the departments to help with their operational requirements? It's basically what I'm looking at. Okay. Does that make sense?
Have the mic,
Would you
Mr. Abernathy?
mind if I speak to it? Thank you, Madam Mayor. One thing to keep in mind is over the last few years, you're 100% right, where our departments are typically the ones that are asked to drop here and there. But our directive over a number of years has very much been to budget a little bit more conservatively, make sure we avoid deficits and whatnot.
Right.
And in recent years, council has also allocated additional money to our budgets, right? So just as an example, our asphalt budget, which we had last year, that budget had $60,000 in it in previous years. It went to $80,000, and then it went up to $220,000. With that increase in the operational budget, which is still included in this budget, we were able to do the repair on Bayshore last year, to do Doucette Street, and a little bit of Narcisse. So that is included on top of this as well, right? So that $220,000 in road work is already in our operational budget as well. We haven't allocated it yet. There's going to be some discussion with the efficiency committee to decide what streets are in really bad shape after the winter. But if you take that $220,000 and then you also look at streets, like that's a pile of work for us to do, right?
No, I get
So
that.
for us to do that work and then also, not going to lie, a little bit of extra money in sidewalks certainly would be appreciated. We could allocate some resources to that as well. But on the road work side of things, we've grown so fast over the last number of years that we kind of need a little bit of room to breathe here and figure this out, what the best practices are and how to spend that money properly. I think another year with a budget such as this would certainly get us better in line to give council an idea of how they can best allocate in a future year. But I just wanted to make it clear that there's a pile of money allocated here for streets for
So you're
next
saying
year.
you don't want any more in your budget? Is that what you're
I
saying?
said this last year too, and you guys allocated more, and I think we got a pile of work done this year. But I think with what we have here, this is more than we had allocated last year. We had 400,000 total allocated last year. Here we have 280, 175, 60, and 50 on top of the 225. So it's a pile of work, right? And then we've also got major capital works going on next year in St. Anne Street, Chaleur Street, and Main Street. The availability of the contractors is simply not going to be there. So at the end of the day, there's only so much work we can pile into 1 year. I think if we look maybe in the future a little bit more, allow us to maybe maximize our output on the street rebuilding side, and then come to you next year with, okay, we're ready to take on 600,000 the following year. Maybe that would be an option that would be a little easier for us to handle. Because right now, with our staffing that we have, it'd be very difficult to sort this all out in 1 year. We only have one crew that can build roads, and we built roads almost all summer. So it would have been difficult for us to add an additional crew there. It would eat up a big chunk of that money to add an additional crew with equipment, with trucks, right? It's major money. So the next step is probably a big step as far as gearing up to be able to do more work. So I'd like to focus on trying to maximize with the amounts that we have right now and see if we can get that all done in the summer. We fell just short this year. We weren't able to get Ryan Road done. Hopefully next year we can get everything done. So I feel very comfortable with the amounts that are allocated here personally in the capital. I think that we can achieve it. Any more would be tough, I think.
Okay. He doesn't want any more money. I'm good.
Right. Deputy Mayor Willett?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, well, I know there's a few streets that we wanted to keep on doing, and we ran out of funds, ran out of bodies. That all comes up to that. So we ran out of money. We ran out of people to do the work. At the end of the year, we were supposed to do a little bit on Main Street and on Ryan Road, and it didn't happen. As far as the Roussel O'Neill building is concerned, I'm in the same view as Councillor Anderson. I mean, we can cut that into 4 years instead of doing it in 2 years and reallocate that money instead of losing the $100,000 in interest fees on the tree bottom projects. We can actually do that. That way, there we're not losing that money on the interest, and the people still have their place where they can work. So.
All right, Mr. Abernathy.
Sorry.
I left
I'm going to do a lot of talking tonight, it looks like.
Yeah, you have to be doing a lot of talking tonight.
Should have got myself a bottle of water. If you look at that space down there, I completely understand looking to want to chop it up, but it's one big open space. Our engineering department, sorry, not our engineering department, the engineers that had to look at it, their original estimates were 1.2 million to get that space done. That was including some stuff that was in phase 2 there, the second year for the police department. But we've taken the scope of that project. We've narrowed it down to basically bare bones to try and get it in at 500. It's actually 585 because there's an HRV unit that has to get done as well, which is included in there. Thanks, Don. So if you look at the space itself, it's basically just one big open space. So all we're really doing is redoing the floors, painting it, and then adding a couple of walls for some office space. That's really it. So to chop it up into a number of different projects is going to be, first of all, we're going to pay more because it's going to be multiple projects, so we're going to be paying more on tendering fees and both the cost of the work itself, because it's less of a scope, is going to be more expensive per unit. So we really feel like the 500 is pretty much the minimum we could go on that, on getting a reasonable project in that space.
That's the price of building a house. That's what I really dislike about when it's a tender for the city, that we're getting gouged 100 miles an hour, where it doesn't make sense. So.
There is a possibility that the estimates were based on something more in line with what COVID pricing was, maybe with supplier delays and whatnot. There is a chance that we may get a lower bid than that. If that's the case, we'd certainly make better use of the rest of those funds. But the initial pricing is based on, I mean, I'm sure everybody remembers the tenders that came in for those offices at the KCI and stuff like that. I mean, the pricing is what it is. I mean, we can't really do that work ourselves, so.
Okay. Councillor French?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just going to wait a minute so Mr. Abernathy can have a drink. My question's not very difficult. I was just curious. So there's 7 people there now. So when the renovations are done, how many people will we be able to house there?
Dustin, just remind me, there's actually 8 people there now, and there will be 9. No, sorry, yeah. 8 people, yeah. All of phase 1. Phase 2 is.
Oh, your microphone's off. Hold on, Mr. Abernathy, I'm sorry.
So, yeah, sorry, I misspoke earlier. Dustin just reminded me there's actually 8 people there, and the plan is to have 8 people there when the project is complete. Yeah.
So $500,000 to make offices for 8 people, essentially. Okay. And I guess the other thing I'm curious about, so there'd be no savings to do like both phases at the same time? I've never been in the building, so, but the way you're describing it, it sounds like it's just as cost effective to do it as 2 separate contracts as one large contract? Is that?
Certainly would be more cost effective to do it in one large contract. I'm not quite sure we're prepared to do the upper half. The way it's laid out is very much 2 separate spaces. And so that's why we had divided it up, and it also fits significantly better in our capital budget. So that's why we had put it in as 2 separate phases. It splits quite well, because the next year's phase would be a wall dividing where the police section would be from where the city hall type of staff would be. Basically that wall, and then a couple offices on the other side. So it would be to complete the police side. So it's very much splitting the space into 2 separate projects we felt would be quite reasonable.
Not to kick things down the road, but I was just wondering, like, if people have been working there already, could they work there another year? We take some of that money, like Councillor Anderson said, disperse it to other departments, put what's left over in reserve, and maybe look at the whole project next year or the year after, where we could have some cost savings? Would that be feasible, or?
I could certainly ask the engineers what the projected cost would be as doing it in two phases in one phase and get back to you with that.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Councillor Knowles?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't know who to address this question to, but what's the total number of city employees now as we head into 2025 as opposed to 2021 when this council came into place?
Good question. Anybody have that answer, Mr. Pettigrew? Yeah, would you be able to gather that?
Yeah, HR would.
HR, okay, so could we have that for next week? Next Monday?
And I want to add, I'm not against it, hiring additional people when warranted.
Yeah. Councillor Branch?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could we ask for that to be broken down also by management and hourly positions too?
Management and hourly position? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome, even if it can be emailed to us, absolutely. Don't have to wait till next week. Okay, so here's my take on this, is parks, when we talked about public works, which we're fine, but parks and recs is one area that has been losing out. So for $140,000, and, you know, there's so many things that we're looking at this budget when we were looking at, you know, the water park that we're going to do. I think we're taking the money from Parkland. Now we want to take this out of tourism levy to pay for something else. That belongs to council and what they choose to want to do. If you want to borrow $140,000 and then have $35,000 interest on it, or based on the only list that we have there is $500,000 for the renovation, cut that by $140,000, and we don't borrow any money. So moving forward, I think if I'm not mistaken, we need a direction on what council wishes to do. So I am going to go individually and ask, because we need to move forward and see where we're going from this so we can move on to the next phase.
If I could just add just before.
Please,
just
go right
because
ahead, Madame Gova.
I
Yeah.
just want to add, there was a suggestion to postpone, who said it, O'Neill, by 1 year. So let's say that we double it for next year. The reason why there was one phase this year, there's also because next year the budget is not going to be that high because we don't have access to the $1.5 million surplus. So there's next year, the budget, in the 5-year capital plan, I don't remember by heart, it's like 1.4, 1.5 total. This year we're able to, it was 1.4, we increased it by 1.5 with using the surplus. That surplus is not expected to be there in next budget. So that's just one consideration to take when looking at the totality of the projects.
Okay. So I'll go to Councillor Anderson for your feedback.
So are you saying that if we decide to push this to next year, the money's not going to be there to do it?
Most likely, if it's done in one phase, then it would eat 1 million out of the 1.4, 1.5 million. So it would leave very little for roads, because even if there would be anything left, because we already have an approved DTI project for 2026, would pretty much eat all of it up, and then there would be nothing else left.
But we could push it and do this phase next year if we chose not
Oh,
to.
yes, it could be phased, but if it's all in one, then it would eat all at once, if it's one.
Because my suggestion is like, if we're at a 270 deficit now, my preference would be to drop that project for this year, or for 2025. So that'll leave us with 230-ish. That'll cover the 140 for Mr. Wilbur's projects that were allocated for the tourism levy. That way we still have the 250-ish to play with the tourism levy, and there's already projects that would fit in that budget. And then there'd still be a little bit left over. That would be my choice. And even if we could look at possibly borrowing for the couple smaller projects to give us a little bit more flexibility when it comes to taxes and stuff, I'd be all over that too.
So for this phase, we're going to talk about that portion. You would recommend that we push that project for next year for phase 1?
Yep,
Okay,
and reallocate that money.
okay. Conseiller Leblanc?
C'est pas une décision facile. De la manière qu'elle l'a faite là, on irait chercher les argents. Moi, la chose que je vais revenir avec, c'est que le conseiller Legacy a fait une suggestion la semaine dernière, que ça fait longtemps que je pense, et que je pense que nos citoyens méritent. Ça fait des années qu'on charge et on charge et on charge et on augmente les coûts partout. C'est pas nécessairement de notre faute, certainement pas de la leur. Mais moi, j'aimerais vraiment leur donner, leur offrir une chance, un peu de place à respirer, surtout qu'on augmente de 2% encore les taxes d'eau cette année. Mais ça, on n'a pas le choix. Il faut continuer. Les utilities, on sait, on peut pas prendre l'argent d'ailleurs, mais je veux pouvoir donner le 2 cents de rabais sur les taxes foncières. Donc,
Ça va être amené après.
oui, ben,
C'est
c'est que
notre
ça ici va déterminer ça aussi. Hein.
Pas nécessairement.
Non?
Pas nécessairement, comme on va revenir là tout de suite.
Ça,
on discute.
ça pèse-tu dans la balance?
Oui et non, dans le sens que ça règle 2025. Je me mélange à ce point-ci. Ça règle 2025 à balancer, mais l'argent qui est utilisé pour payer le 500 000 vient du surplus, donc cet argent-là ne reviendra plus. Donc, ce qu'on descend en utilisant cette méthodologie-là, pour le 500 000 pour balancer le budget, ça va juste retarder le problème en 2025.
Parce que moi, j'ai pas vraiment envie d'enlever le 500, je comprends. Mais j'aime mieux qu'on emprunte ailleurs puis qu'on puisse donner le 2 cents. Ça, d'une manière ou d'une autre, bientôt, je vais revenir là-dessus. Dépendant de ce que mes collègues vont dire. Là. Mais moi, je sais que de mon bord à moi, il faut qu'on lui donne une chance de respirer à quelque part nos citoyens. Ça fait que vraiment, Madame la mairesse, je vais laisser mes confrères décider, parce que moi, je le laisserai cette année pour éviter d'engendrer des plus grands coûts dans les années à venir. Je suis pas contre du tout ce que mes collègues disent, au contraire, je les comprends.
Puis on emprunterait 140 000?
Ouais.
OK. On le resterait tel quel, avec
Ouais.
l'emprunt de 140 000. Parfait. Councillor Scary.
It is some difficult decisions for sure. As much as it would be nice to have that money, that 500,000, is there a way? I think we had asked, would there be a way to find out what could be done to accommodate or make some changes that wouldn't involve taking that full $500,000 at this point and moving it towards moving the rest of the plan to next year?
Okay, hold on, I'll give you the mic. The system only allows so many mics. All right, you're good.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. As mentioned previously, the 500 is very much us getting very creative to do the best we can with a reasonable number. The engineer's opinion is that the cost is going to be way more than that. So I'm thinking we're going to have to make tough decisions during the construction phase anyway, even at 500, to get something done there that's reasonable to house our employees. So I personally, I do feel like the 500 is pretty much a minimum there at that project.
Well, I'd like to hear what the other councillors feel, and you know, amongst us we can, or with that we can make an informed decision, or a decision that we feel is best. Yes.
Okay, so you don't want to share your opinion right now when I come back to you?
I just, you know,
There's tough decisions that need to be made.
it is, and as much as, I mean, there are other projects that, you know, we talk about the streets and the sidewalks that there is work that has to be done. By freeing up some of that money from here, would that, you know, would we be able to do some more of that stuff that is available? You know, it's funny how I know Facebook. You see stuff on Facebook, and then you run into people in town that talk and you know, new to council, and they're wondering how come this street wasn't done and how come that street wasn't done, and if we had the availability to have some of that extra money and a portion of this or that money be put into some of the street repairs that are definitely needed. I would think that would be a good idea.
But Mr. Abernathy did just
Yes.
mention
Mhm.
that they're going to be maxed out with
Yes.
staff and all the work
Yeah.
for 2025. So there's going to be a lot of streets getting done in 2025 based on the budgets of what we have. So I'm going back to, do you want to leave it as is and borrow 140,000 to the Capital Borrowing Board or not?
Can I think a little bit?
Okay, Councillor Hondas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just hearing Mr. Abernathy speak about this and having more information, maybe we didn't have previously, I'd be okay with leaving it as is, the way that it is, borrowing the 140 to cover those projects. The renovations have to be done, and if we push them to next year, then we lose out on that $1.5 million. If we can get it done, it needs to be done. These people, it's going to be cost efficient at the end of it because it's going to, right now it's probably harder to heat. Once it's cut up in cubes, it's going to be easier to heat, so we might be saving some money there. So I'd be okay with the way that it was presented, Madam Mayor.
All right, and I'll go to Councillor Legacy.
Not quite sure what to say on this because I feel like there's a lot of information that's going to be presented that will affect these decisions that we just haven't talked about yet. So I feel like it's the chicken and the egg thing because if we say certain things now and then we decide later that it doesn't agree with our decision then we're just running in circles here. So I wish we would have been able to dive a little bit deeper into other alternatives on ways to actually make up this money. But if we're going in this direction on how we're going to make our decisions, I would say borrow for the 140 and the 500. I mean, my answer might change later based on the information we get, but
Well, it's not set in stone. Right now, it's just to have an idea of where we're moving forward.
but that's why I
But
feel
we're
like
not
we should have the
voting-
information presented first and then come to decisions.
I know, but I'm following what I've been asked to go through this phase and try to have before we go to the next step.
We can also revisit after that. All the decision will be an initial guide to guide the next discussion, and then it'll loop back at the end of the decision summary. The last slide that I'm going to have is just an open discussion about everything to make sure that everything is still going up to par, but at least now would guide the next discussion, but at the end it'll all be summarized to make sure nothing's changed as well.
And we can change that.
Yeah, but I also see that I have a feeling there's going to be certain items that won't even be brought up that we could reconsider of requests that were made, but we're just assuming that they're happening no matter what. And I'm talking about the HR meeting. There's some requests in there I'd like to bring back up, but I hope that comes back later. But I'd say borrow the 140, leave the 500 for right now. We'll see what happens after.
Okay. Councillor Knowles.
I would say leave it alone and borrow the 140. I don't think it's an enormous amount of money. We have to get things done.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Willett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm kind of flabbergasted that we didn't get any documents before this meeting. We had a meeting last Wednesday. We didn't get anything after that, no feedback or anything, and here we are dealing with this. I'll say borrow the 140, which I think we're losing a little bit of money here, but borrow the 140 for now, and I might change my mind after. So.
Okay. Branch.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When I brought this up too, just to clarify, like, I was wondering if we could get that information and revisit it later, because my thought process was, over 2 years, we're putting almost 1.1 million. So if we did the whole thing as one big project, maybe to be like 900,000 or something, and we'd save a couple of $100,000, right? That way, we could put the money in reserve and do it all next year. But anyway, that being said, I like the whole idea of the debt reduction strategy and all that. So personally, I'm not really in favor of borrowing when we have cash. So I'd say we don't borrow, but we find the money somewhere else. I don't want to say no to Mr. Abernathy's project if there's no savings to doing it, right? If there's no savings to doing it all at once, then I wouldn't want to put everyone through the hardship of postponing it.
Okay. Councillor Scary, I'm going back to you.
I guess, my thought on it at first was we were making a definitive decision.
No, we're not.
And that was where it was sort of a hard kind of thing, because again, there are other things that are going to be brought up a bit later. Some of the things that may be presented that might sort of change some decisions as to what direction we go in. So I would say that we borrow the 140 and do the renovations. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that's the direction we have so far. That might change. Madame Gauvin, we can keep moving forward.
Okay. Operating general fund, so now we're going to look at the other fund. And this one is just a confirmation. It was we took the sections that were last time up for consideration, so we made sure that those were still in there because we want to make sure that we address everyone. What we had understood last time is that we are budgeting the same regular increases for the policy that's currently there for the budget of 2025, but in 2025 there will be a citizens committee put in place like last time, and they would make recommendations, and then we would go from there and see if if they make recommendations for an increase, if it would be put the same year or push back 2026. That decision would come at that time. So I'm okay to budget the same amount as what the current policy states for 2025.
Okay, so I do have a question, the travel budget, because I know we had made some changes because so people can go to Lypham Bay, like all the conferences that there are within the municipalities in the province of New Brunswick and with FCM. How much did we spend actually last year? Like we're almost at the year end. Can you tell us how much we've spent in travel, which includes mine as well? Like maybe if you can give separately. Like what are we actually using in that area?
I don't have that information with me, but maybe Madam Parker would have that on file, but that will have to
she's
be
working on it right now. Okay, well maybe we can come back to it, and then we can review. Let's say, for example, we have 45,000 for council. If we've really only used 30, if council is okay, we'll take 15 out of it. The one I have, I see 2024 budget is 10,000, and we're changing it to 17. But if I have barely used my 10, I would not increase it. I know here I see council was 61, it was decreased to 45. Okay. Yeah, maybe if we could just have, if we can move on.
Send it in an email.
Yeah, and if there are changes, there are opportunities that we can save 10,000 or 15,000. Would council be okay with that? Okay, all right.
Okay.
Perfect.
Take that as a note. So now we're touching base on the discussions as a follow-up for the tourism, the reconciliation of the 250. So we just brought back the slide that was presented last time for the reference, where we had Titan Boots for hotel at 13,000 and then tourism signage at 55. Other tourism initiative, 42,000. That is still unallocated. It is still wide open for council to decide what they would like to do with that money. And then we had presented the three projects that we had just discussed a few minutes ago. So that was the initial proposal. Hearing back from council, we have prepared some kind of a working slide where we have the tourism booth or hotel tourism signage. If council approves those, then we would have the other initiatives where we kept it as is because it's unallocated. And then there's the 140 that is now up for discussion. So there can be tourism grants that can be allocated with that money. There can be other initiatives as council has ideas that they can do with that. So because now the discussions seem to be to borrow for the 140, now there's the full amount available in this budget for council to make a recommendation on what they would like.
Councillor Anderson?
Thank you, Worship. I just want to go back to the tourism signage again. Like I'd mentioned last week, that signage used to come out of the communications budget. Communications budget, from what I believe, hasn't been reduced to reflect that $55,000 or whatever monies was allocated there yearly for signage. So what is happening with that money that had been allocated to the communications budget?
It has been reallocated for other things. So in the communications budget, there was, yes, 1 year there was a line for this, but then the year after, that project wasn't in their budget. It was replaced with that alert system, Voyant alert.
Yeah.
So that was replaced with that project instead. And in 2025, it's replaced with the branding exercise. So they've just had new project that replaced the value of that project, sometimes a little bit higher, sometimes a little bit lower, but it's been replaced with other types of projects.
Okay.
And that's why their budget doesn't seem to be going like this, because it's not theirs, because it's been doing new projects instead.
Okay.
So is it branding exercise for their department or for branding exercise for the
Citywide.
city of Bathurst? So, okay, so we're doing a whole new branding exercise. That's where the money's going. Okay. All right. Okay, any other question? So the 110 would stay where it is. So that would still leave us $42,000 under other. And then we would take the 140 towards the tourism that we would be using because we're going to the Capital Foreign Board. So Deputy Mayor Willett?
Yeah. The other tourism initiative, what does that comprise of?
We don't know what that will be for council. That was a leftover unallocated money.
Okay,
So that really is up for council
Okay.
recommendation.
thank you.
Okay. Conseiller Leblanc?
C'était pas mal la même question, parce que le 42 000, c'est comme dans le futur, on va voir, on est venu de passer à l'autre, puis on décidera si on prend le 42 000 qui est là, s'il est disponible, que ce soit le festival ou autre dans le tourisme.
Ouais.
On va dire à ce moment-là.
Donc, on aurait le 42 plus le 140. Fait, on aurait 188
C'est
000.
ça, ouais.
Ouais. On aurait 13 pour le
Ben, le 13 puis le 55, je pense qu'il est
Correct.
bien
Oui.
attribué, là. On
Oui.
va pas toucher à ça.
Oui.
Le 42, on
Oui.
peut.
Fait, là, on aurait 182 000.
OK, parfait, merci.
Okay. Oh, Mr. Pettigrew.
Yeah, I was just going to point that out. That 42 is there, but you can also allocate part of that 140 into other as well, so you could increase that amount. So that but she mentioned that, so it was really that.
Yeah. All right. So we would look at putting that into one under other. Councillor Branch?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just curious, so Councillor Anderson mentioned $55,000 that was moved out of the communications budget into this other budget, but if I'm looking, communications doesn't have a reduction, but they actually show an increase of almost $167,000. So, and it says this includes $80,000 for branding exercise. So that leaves 87,000 plus the 55,000. So what's that extra increase for?
Mr. Pettigrew, go to Madame Gauvin.
I'm not, 87 plus the 55 is removed.
Yes.
Is no longer. And the tourism was replaced with the branding of 80. So there's 80,000 increase, and the other one is economic adjustment. I'm not sure what's in the
The
presentation.
salaries are the new position.
And the new position.
New position? Okay, thank you.
Councillor Knowles?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The tourism signage, will that be at entry points to our city as a result of the government reform? Are they going to be moved around? Where will they be?
Good question. Who do I go to? Mr. Pettigrew?
Yeah, I can start off, but I know
Okay.
Mr. Wilbur was involved with some discussions on some tourism initiatives. I think it was the gateways to the city. Part of that discussion was we need to look at, it ultimately comes with the branding exercise. We need to do the branding exercise to determine our vision and our look on how we want it, and then part of that funds were to do the branding exercise first, then get into the what we want as our gateways or entrance into the city. I know there was a discussion on Cape Road, that there was no sign, the sign was removed, that was a discussion.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, definitely we'd have to indicate as well with the new boundaries, municipal boundaries. We're working to make sure we need to adjust those. They need to actually readjust provincially as well where those boundary lines are, but we would need to have discussions, Mr. McLaughlin and the planning department, to have the highway usage permits, but that'll be part of that process of the signage process.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Deputy Mayor Willett?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So if we get money back from the province for signage, which hopefully will happen with fiscal reform, does that mean that that money will go back to the tourism levy?
I would assume so. If we can find outside funding, then that opens up the money again.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, we move on.
So where do we put the 140? Do we just put, did I understand that we put 182 in other tourism initiatives?
Yes. If I'm not mistaken, this is what we're looking for? Yes.
Okay. Then this ties in with the grant. So initially, we had, so in the current, so what we're doing every year is like when we start with the grants, we start with what was in the previous year as a reference for the total budget. So the total budget 2024 was 165. Then we look at the allocated amounts. So there's one change that we did since last time. I thought that the old post office, the additional grant, wasn't yet approved for future years. I thought it was only for the 1 year, the resolution, but turns out it was for multiple years. So I adjusted the 20 grand in the old post office. So now there's 112,400 that has already been allocated, and the money that will be given to the grants committee for distribution in this format is 52,600. So now for discussion, we have obviously the same that's already been allocated, but there's a few notes and then the spots for decisions. On the line for North Tetegush Recreational Center, so the amount that's been allocated was 45, but we heard that they would need 65,000, so that's up for discussion. If the 65 is granted, then the amount that's already allocated would go to 132, and the grants left, if council chooses to remain the same, would be 32,000, but that's one of the numbers that we need. So we need two things out of the first section. So one, what would you like to do with North Tetegush? And then what's the amount that you would that council would like to have to send to the grants budget? Because that's 52,600. That's the line where we're looking for a decision from council, how much you would like to give the grants committee. We had allocated a line, not allocated, but we had added a line just in case, because in the previous slide for tourism, if council wanted to already put money in tourism grants, we had put 0 because we had no guidance, but let's say that you had chosen to put money for tourism grants, the plug would have been here for the total grants budget. So we just had the space prepared in case.
So we would put it there, but it would fall under tourism grants.
Well, the money comes from tourism, but when we do financial statements, it bundles up to grants, but the money could be coming from.
Okay, so we have a question from Councillor Legacy.
I don't believe that it was approved, the extra 20K. That meeting, they had talked about only the 2024 amount, and this was to be discussed at the budget. So now it would be discussed for the future agreement for the old post office.
For the old post office? So maybe I would need clarification from...
I wasn't here, so I'm going to look at Mr. Pettigrew. Okay. Amy, okay, all right.
Yes, you're correct. We did 40 grand this year to take into consideration last year and this year, and then there would be 60 grand that would need to figure out how you want to proceed with that.
Okay.
To align with the other three, or.
So my mistake. I thought it was already in the resolution. I thought it had been allocated. So technically, my first table without adjustment would have been the right one. So that means that there's 92,400 already allocated, and then the rest. Yes. My mistake.
Okay, so on the table we have 2, which we'll still have to bring it for discussion and for voting. but appetite from council for the North Tettagush, 45 to 65. Feedback, I'll go individually. I'll start with Councillor Hondas. Yeah, I'm going to give you the mic, Hondas. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just, was that an amount that they asked for? Is that something that we put in there? Like, was it really 20,000 that they wanted to hire somebody for it, or is there a different amount that we can add? Maybe 15,000, or?
They'll take what, I think they'll take what they can get, because the thing is that they do, when they do rentals and they do make some money. It's just that with all the volunteers, and right now with a new president, vice president, or AGM coming in March, they're trying to get as many people as volunteers. But whenever they have certain events, like they're renting for a birthday party, for a wedding, it makes it difficult for all the volunteers to constantly be there. So they could pay a portion of the employee and this extra money, because the 45 that we give them goes for their mortgage payment, the electricity, the snow removal. Like they do pay, I think it's like $4,000 to have snow removal. So they spend all of that, and they don't have a lot of money left over. But I'm sure they will take anything that you can offer.
Okay, so I just like to revisit that amount, because if it's just to hire somebody for a couple hours a day or something like that, I don't know how
I think
20,000.
it was for about 15 hours a week.
15 hours
10
a week?
to 15, that they would pay a portion out of their income.
So whatever
to try
we'd
to
pay,
make
they'd
it.
match? Is that what I can understand? And whatever we'd pay, they'd match?
They would match approximately, yeah.
Yeah. So.
Because that 20 would not be enough to hold somebody for a year. So.
Okay. Everything else is good. I just have a question on that particular amount, because we're already allocating 45,000. So
Yeah.
20. I'll just wait for my colleagues to weigh in, and if you don't mind coming back.
Okay, I will. Councillor Scary?
Having been at the meeting, I do remember them mentioning that, you know, they definitely want to be able to offer some sort of remuneration for the people that would be looking after the cleaning up after the rentals, setting up whatever the case may be. There had been an amount mentioned at 10 to 15,000. They figured that they could probably make do with that. I think probably what the best thing to do would be to find out, because I do know that they did say they were going to sit down and discuss that amongst themselves and figure out roughly what they'd be looking for. So maybe what we should do is sort of hear back from them and say, you know, what kind of, have you done that yet? What kind of monies would be involved? Because they do a fairly substantial return on their rentals and those kinds of things. So I'm thinking, you know, maybe definitely would like to be able to support it, but maybe to the tune of, you know, maybe around 10 or 15,000 based on what they would come back to us with.
I could follow up with them if you want.
Yeah.
Or if you want to follow up, because I know you're on
I'll
the
give
committee.
Charles a call just to see
give
if
him
they've-
a call and
yeah.
see if 10,000 would be good. And if he's okay with 10,000, then we could bring that back to 10,000 as opposed to.
Because they did say that any support would be appreciated.
Yes. Okay. So Deputy Mayor Willett is lit up, but go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I was at the meeting too, and that's basically, they want to be able to apply to have somebody through a government program or whatever, so that they can pay some of the wages and have us probably furnish a few dollars so that they can still operate, because they're burning out their volunteers. That's what's going on. So, so yeah, if we can come back with an exact amount, we'd be okay.
So you'd be able to look into that and see. Okay. Councillor Legacy?
I'd like to just throw out the recommendation that we leave them both at the 20 for the old post office and the 45 for the North Tettagush Rec Center. We can still decide this next year. The grant committee can come back with a recommendation. We still have the additional funds. It doesn't need to be determined in this budget process.
Yep, exactly. We can. Like, we can go at the next page and then decide and just have the amount, because we do have a committee for grants. So if we leave it as such for now, and then that opens up with the funds, and if we transfer, well, the tourism, which we'll call tourism initiative instead of tourism levy, tourism initiative, that will be in there as well.
Yes. So just a reminder that because of the old post office, that discretionary amount will be 72. So that would be the amount that would be left for the grants committee if council chooses to remain with that amount, so that's like the next part of the question. So it's how much would you like to give from this line? That's why I kind of have red letters. It's either you leave the 72,600 or increase, remain, or decrease.
Okay, so it's 165 that we have right now.
Total. So what's left for discretionary with the adjustments of the old post office? Thank you. That would be 72,600 left for discretionary.
Okay, so that would leave us 72 for next year. Is council comfortable with just the 72?
Yeah.
We're comfortable with 72? Oh, all right. Excuse me. Councillor LeBlanc?
I'm very comfortable with it, but I need to ask, I think, didn't we start with 58 this year, or 60 or something like that? Can we get that number? No, we didn't have that left.
What you had for discretionary?
Yeah, discretionary.
55.
55. So 72 is quite a bit considering where we started this year. But we get those extra requests as we do at the end of the year. This is where I kind of disagree with our method. Either we have a grants committee or we don't. Right now, if I'm going to be honest, the way it works, it's not a grants committee. We make decisions on certain amounts, which then are sometimes argued, sometimes not. That's great. That's democracy. But then we have other amounts that people come in and ask for, and instead of going to the grants committee, they're presented and thrown into the budget. And that, to me, is not how we should be proceeding with this. So my recommendation is either we have a set budget and it goes through the grant committee, and if they don't get the dates, as we talked about last year, those types of things, which, by the way, I really enjoy supporting our local, clubs and et cetera. Or just cancel the grants committee, because we spend hours going over these decisions, trying to make the right decision and what council is, would be comfortable with and all, to come back and argue them and then have other ones come in that don't even go by the grants committee. So I feel we're useless.
Fair
That's it.
point. Okay. Councillor Anderson?
Thank you, Your Worship. Don't disagree. I agree with what you're saying. So just to back up, so are you saying for the old post office, put that back down to the $20,000?
Yes, because what we're showing here is the already allocated amount.
Yeah.
So yes, put that back to
Put that back
20,000.
down,
And then the leftover money bumps up to 72,600.
And then leave the North Hedegush at 65?
40.
At
If
45.
you leave the, North Teddy at 40.
The thing with that, like every other association and committee that was requesting donations from the city came and made a presentation, and they had to make a presentation by September 9th. No offense, but just because they went and had a conversation with you, like they should have come and had a conversation to council and presented a budget to us.
Yes, of course, but we never invited them. And the thing is that we're taking over a contract that now, they just joined, they joined part of the city limits. So none of us asked them to come and present. And for them, this is something that they received from the provincial government every year, that we sent a letter
I have no
and
problem with,
approved the letter for 3 years that we would give them the
I have
45.
no problem with paying
Yeah.
the $45,000.
Yeah.
Like that, to me, that's on the books. That was
Yeah.
the commitment that was made. I don't have any issue with it. It's the other $20,000.
We can ask them to come.
And because when I do the math, at minimum wage is $15.30. If they're looking for 15 hours a week, that comes to $11.9 for a year. So to add another $20,000 onto it, to me seems a little high. But if we're going to be adding additional money to the 45, I would like to see a budget. And I don't want to sound mean, but I mean, we request that of every other organization that comes
Yeah.
through the doors.
We could, absolutely. Okay. Councillor Scarry?
Yeah, what I could do then is, again, when it was brought up that night at the meeting, they found out that there was some possibilities for government assistance, i.e. Hiring some seniors that would be, out of the workforce that would like to get back in and do some part-time work and that kind of thing. So those programs are available. What I can do is I could get Charles to come to a meeting and make the presentation. I was very impressed with the way, the times that they've talked about their budget. They have things pretty tight. They really, really do. And I think maybe, he definitely would be would entertain and would be here. And then in that same presentation, just say, you know, we figured out, or we've reached out and possibly contacted some possible government assistance, and we would see that we might need the assistance, and if they needed $10,000, would it be available, that kind of thing. So I definitely will talk to them and get them to come out to a meeting very soon.
Sounds like a plan. Councillor Knowles?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I wasn't aware of the additional request for the 20,000 in addition to the 45,000.
You might have missed the
I know we
meeting.
committed the 45,000, so I'm comfortable with that for now.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely want to support them any way we can, but I think we should stick with the 45.
Okay. So we're going to leave 45 and 20, leave everything else open, and I agree with the grants committee. You know, we did put a committee together, so I think that going into 2025, council will have to determine whether, if we have a committee together and they come in with recommendation, for council to just shut everything down, there's no point of having a grants committee. So if that's the way it's going to be, it's something that you will have to think it through, and it just comes straight to a council meeting and decisions is made then and there. So we'll have another discussion on that one.
And I think too, what we should do is hold fast to our date, because we had, I think it was September. Was it September, the deadline?
Yeah, we should have like at least 2 dates throughout the year.
Yeah.
Because some projects just come in, you know, last minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So just to summarize, we're going to leave the 45, the old post office will be 20, North Tetagush will remain 45, and the discretionary will be 72,600 for the total budget of 165.
165, yeah. And then we are also going to add the 184.
Yes, in the
tourism.
yes,
Great.
slide.
Okay.
So I got that okay?
Yes.
Okay. The next section is simply a return. We were asked to clarify the library budget a little bit more. So I have another slide that reconciled, but for now, if you look at the total budget for the library, it is 77,389, and then there were some descriptions on the bottom. So now if we reconcile their document from what we see in the total budget, so the way that it works, we have the city budget where you can see the total at the bottom of 77,389. Then out of their document, they listed in one of the pages where they had like a real budget format, different section of the budget. Some are for softwares, which we are responsible to cover. Some are incidental, printer, maintenance, paper, that kind of stuff. In the library, where we took the other slide information from the bottom, it was in their text. So within their document, they have a text where they explained a few things that were different from previous years, where they were looking for investments. That's where the other slide, when you look at the bottom, that's where that information came from. It's from the text, where we can reconcile the 7 computers, new patron furniture, the mini fridge. They had no amount in their written format, but it was within 850 within their listed budget. Programming supplies, they wanted to increase that from 1,000 to 1,500, but that's how we reconcile it. So the other portion where they didn't address it in the text is because it's regular information that they typically always have, like printer papers and stuff like that. And there's also a portion of their budget which they don't include because they don't see that portion, like for electricity, water, janitorial service, those fees, they don't see that part of the budget, so that's why their budget is always lower than what we fully budget on their behalf. So I don't know if that clarifies, but that's the reconciliation that we came up with.
Okay. So last year we gave them overall, is it like the 77?
It was 68,000 last year.
Okay. And then this year we would be 77 with the request of the 15?
Yes, if that is approved by council. So really, what we tried to do as best as we could is reconcile what was different from previous years using what they had in the written portion, not the budget format page.
Okay, so 5 new circular computers, 1 admin laptop, 1 public use laptop. I can tell you that our library is a busy place. It's unbelievable. When I come in during the day, a lot of people are on that computer looking for work and whatnot, and they do wonderful work. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. So once again, like when they came in to present their request for this year, their total was $23,092 is what they were requesting. $86.17 was for computer subscriptions. $12,975 was for new modern furniture. $1,500 was programming supplies.
Out of their written document or the verbal?
That was what she had on her slides to us, or what she presented to us, because I took note of everything that she wrote.
Okay, that's okay.
So what said equals the 23,000, so like from what, they were requesting the 2392 as opposed to the 15,483.
So the 15,483 is only what's different than what they would typically get. Their full budget of 23,000, that's in the middle section, budget from the library. That's the stuff that they would typically see. So their paper, printer maintenance and paper, programming supplies, ACF licenses, softwares, that kind of stuff. So that includes more than just the new stuff. Like it's stuff that we're already responsible for by having the library, softwares and stuff like that. So that's why they included in their total budget of 23,000. But what we presented on the next slide is only what makes the variances from budget to budget. Because last year they had...
Because they received all that in the years past.
Yes.
Okay.
So we tried to just explain what changed, because last year they also had different things where they wanted us to invest as well. So that's why it's not exactly $15,000 more, because obviously they made purchases in 2024 that they're not doing again, that were approved last year in the budget. That's why it's not like the full 50, whoops.
Was
the
it
full
last year that we did the carpet?
Yeah, they had a few
Was it
things,
last
yeah.
year?
Carpet last year.
So that's why we can't compare exactly the variance between both, but the list from in text is what they highlighted that was different than regular software stuff and stuff like that.
Okay.
Okay. Councillor Hondas?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you said, our library is very busy. They're moving along with at a good pace. I think we had okayed the carpet for that building back when we first started in 2016, and it only got done last year. So they got new carpet, they got fresh paint. Their fridge broke down for the staff to keep their food. They need comfortable chairs, new computers. Everything's kind of getting obsolete. So I'd like to see us support this. It's a great place for our kids and people that are looking for jobs. And they really haven't asked for much since I've been here in 2016. So they pretty much stay on par. They're asking for a little bit of liberties this year, and I wish we could grant them what they've asked for.
We've been here since 2016, and they've asked year over year, and they got 0, 0, 0, 0, because we kept cutting the budget, trying to balance the budget. So if we can give them a little bit of tender loving care, I agree. I mean, the story times on the weekend and Saturday, if you see them, it's beautiful to see all these children and the parents. And so if it's possible, by all means, but again, this belongs to council. So, Ms. Gauvin, you're looking for direction whether we're saying yes or no to this?
Yeah.
Okay. So I am going to ask council, are you okay with investing that $15,483 extra? If I have anybody say no, please press your button. Okay. Yes, we're making it quicker instead of going individually, so we can move on.
All right. The last section, it's a big one, but an important one. So tax rates, we're kind of taking everything in, and it bundles up to tax rates. So I just want to clarify, this is the same slide before we come up with the scenario that was discussed last week. When I did the slide last time, the value of 1 cent for Old City of Bathurst, by mistake, I took the number from my Excel spreadsheet and I had made the addition from the 8,000 and the 15,000 to make the value of 1 cent. That's my bad. So I adjusted the value of 1 cent because it was looking really quite low when I presented it. The value of 1 cent for Old City of Bathurst is 148,062. So just so that you have all the numbers refreshed before we get to the next slide. So we were asked to look at what it would look like if, for example, compared to the current tax rate, if we kind of looked at Miramichi's example of 2025, reducing the tax rate to 1.7550, and then in 2026, 1.7150. So the variances per year in 2025, it would mean 296,000 revenues less. And then if we do a second reduction in 2026, it would be an additional 592,000 with the same tax base. So that's for your numbers, and that's for discussion from council members.
I think what had brought up was for 2025 at 1.755. 2026 would be something that we would have to look further on. I would not even consider that at this moment. I believe that if we are able to manage the budget and to bring, at least give something to our citizens, and that 2 cents would be a good step forward. But that's where I would stop. And because, as you said, it all depends what our fiscal budget will be for 2026. It all depends our funding, our projects, how this would work, and we may not be able to afford it. We have not been able, the last time they had a property tax increase was in 2015, so prior to ours. Now, assessments has gone up, but property taxes has not gone up. So if we can lower that by 2 cents, it would be something that would be great for the citizens. Councillor Anderson?
Yeah, I just basically, you said what I wanted to say. Like, I would support a 2% reduction at this point, but I'm not comfortable dropping, another 4.5 cents next year already, not until we see the landscape of where we're going come budget time next year. But I would support the 2% down to 1.755 for 2025.
Councillor Legacy?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. It was more I didn't want to make a decision on 2026 this year. It was more to give the staff and management direction on what council would like to see going forward. If it can't happen in 1 year, if it has to take 10 years to get there, at least they know this is the target that we would like to approach. So that's just what I wanted to clarify.
Yeah. Councillor Knowles?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I fully agree with the 2 cent drop. I advocated a couple of years for this, but I understand we weren't in the right position to do it. But it's time for some relief for our taxpayers. They deserve it. So I'm absolutely in favor of it.
Okay. So direction is council okay that we move forward, and Madame Gauvin will come back to balance the budget with the 1.755 going into 2025? Yes? Okay. That's the direction, Madame Gauvin.
Okay. So we're at the discussion summary. So what I'll do is I'll just use the agenda that we had tonight just to reconfirm everything, to make sure that I understand everything.
Before we go
Before I
back,
start-
just
oh,
a
yes.
second, Councillor Anderson has one more question.
Thank you, Worship. Sorry.
That's okay.
We've had, some talks like just with the operational budget and stuff like that this evening. There was an HR presentation that, of course, was done in camera. I would like to be able to go in camera at some point this evening in order to discuss that presentation again, just so that council has clarity on what was proposed in that before we go any further with the budgetary process.
Conseiller Leblanc?
Merci, Madame la mairesse. L'autre partie que j'ai pas vue ce soir, c'était justement dans la section des grants. On avait un autre 315 000, il y en a 150.
La raison, qu'est-ce qu'on a fait, c'est qu'on l'a enlevé. Ben, Madame Gauvin, si vous voulez répondre, là. Ouais.
Je vais utiliser la fichier visuel. Là. Dans le tourisme, le montant de 140 000, si j'ai bien compris, va être mis dans autre initiative touristique pour 182 000. Puis durant l'année, si le conseil décide de le donner sous format de subvention, grants, dans les états financiers, il va sortir dans grants, mais c'est comme ça qu'on considérait le 205.
Ça, je comprends ça clairement. Ce que je comprends pas, c'est l'autre 165 000 qu'on a eu en demande cette année.
Oui,
qui nous
les
restait.
demandes vont venir au comité. C'est qu'on a dit, on voulait pas comme...
OK.
Parce que c'était des demandes. Ces demandes-là sont encore là. C'est juste qu'on voulait essayer de clarifier les choses, puis... Parce que là, on aurait discuté sur le 35 000, sur le 15 000, sur le...
C'est ça.
Fait là, on a dit, c'est des demandes, ils vont venir au comité, ils vont venir au conseil, ça va être voté. C'était plutôt de faciliter le
Ça
budget.
fait que là, la décision va être, est-ce qu'on crée on garde le comité pour s'occuper de ça, ou est-ce qu'on le passe
Exactement.
au conseil?
Ça va être...
Parfait.
oui. OK. All right. So we have two options.
I'd like to make a motion to go in camera to discuss the HR presentation.
Right now, okay, and I'll need someone to second it. Councillor Knowles. Okay, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carried. We are going in camera. We will go in the back, and we will be back. Our apologies. Welcome back. We are back, so we're back onto the agenda. Madame Gauvin, je vais vous donner le micro. Vous l'avez, vous êtes bonne à y aller.
Merci. Juste, vraiment, ce qui restait à faire, c'était résumer la direction qu'on a reçue de conseil ce soir. So I just want to summarize what I think we received for direction from council. So I will just use the agenda that we had in the beginning just as a guide to make sure I hit every item, if I can get there. Okay, there it is. Okay. Okay. So what I understood when we talked about the capital budget for the list of the projects, it was the option where we were borrowing 525,000 plus the 140,000 tourism capital projects for the total of 665. So are we still okay with that amount?
Okay. We're looking for nodding of the heads.
Okay. Then coming on the operational side of things, we will keep salaries inside of the budget as per the policy, but we will look at the actual expenses for travel to see if there's savings from council's travel budget, to see if there's something that could be found there in the budget for 2025. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Then tourism accommodation levy, there's the two projects that already have an assigned amount. So we have the signs plus the booth, and the 182,000 that is left would be budgeted for other tourism initiatives for the total of the 250,000.
Yeah.
Then coming to grants, North Tedegush would remain at 45,000 for what it is, and that would leave 72,000 for discretionary to be sent for the grants committee for the total 165 total budget.
Yes.
Okay. Then going to the library, that was a yes for their requests. And then the tax rate, we received a direction to cut the tax rate for Ward 1 of 2 cents and find the savings within the budget to try to balance and come up next week with proposed balanced budget. Did I catch everything?
Yes.
Okay, then I got my direction.
All right. Okay, go right ahead. Councillor Anderson.
Just for clarification with the hospitality day request, along with the $150,000 from the DBRC request, are we going to use our tourism levy? Can we use our tourism levy to accommodate some of those requests?
Yes. When we do the financial statements, they will still show in the grants section because that's how we have to allocate it, but the money will come from tourism for 50,000, if that's what council wants.
And the same thing with DBRC?
If that's what
there
council
as
does,
well.
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Financial statements will be one thing, and then the reconciliation for tourism for 250 is another. So yes, it can. For both
So we
amounts.
can call it like a tourism grant. Instead of saying
Yeah.
tourism levy, we'll call it tourism.
Because there's
grant.
$182,000 left in that.
Yeah.
And then out of the 165 that was allocated for grants,
There's 72
which I still
left.
think is too high, whatever. So then, but the request that was on that sheet, like the hospitality days and DBRC, that's going to come off of that list, and that'll go directly towards the tourism levy, correct?
If council wishes, yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Deputy Mayor Willett?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just wondering is there any money left over this year for 2024 that we could actually pay the hospitality days with?
Oh, take it out of this year so we don't have
Yes.
to take it out of our tourism
Yes.
initiative.
I will defer because the tourism projects, I will defer to Mr. Wilbur if that's okay, just because he was managing the projects for that side of things, so maybe.
Okay. Oh, you got the mic, Mr. Wilbur?
Thank you, Your Worship. To answer your question, we do have the ability to move around some projects to free up that funding, should that be Council's direction to allocate that funding for hospitality days in 2024. Now, mind you, that would necessitate, we do have a few items that are pending at the moment that we would need to put a hold on. But to answer your question, yes, it would be possible.
I don't want you to put a hold on
Anything.
anything that you have planned now that you can do before the end of the year. I'm just wondering if there's any monies left over. If you can do your work before the end of the year, that it doesn't fall into next year, then I don't want you to stop your projects, that's for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. You need to stay on course with, you don't have enough budget as it is. We're just wondering if there's any extras somewheres that we can utilize to put there. If not, then you have to move forward with your projects.
Then to answer your question, between different initiatives within our department, we've found a multitude of smaller projects that we can allocate that fund towards.
Okay, then put it that way. Conseiller Leblanc?
Ouais, moi, c'était juste pour ajouter que quand même qu'il resterait 10 000. Je sais pas si t'en restes en tout, si on pourrait allouer ça, puis ça sera ça de moi à prendre sur le budget de l'année prochaine. Fait que ça soit 2 000, 5 000, 10 000, si t'en restes. Si t'en as pas de reste, puis tout ton argent est déjà dépensé, je suis bien d'accord avec mes collègues. Touche pas à ça, finis tes projets, s'il vous plaît.
Pour tout de suite, tous les fonds sont déjà alloués, mais
Yeah. Then c'est là que ça va.
Reste la louer.
Ouais.
Parfait. All right. Well, I think meeting adjourned. We meet next Monday, finalize the budget. Merci tout le monde. Bonne soirée.